So the latest update from CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, his Day 22 update, included this commentary on opening the Strait of Hormuz.
We also remain zeroed in on dismantling Iran's decades-old threat to the free flow of commerce throughout the Strait of Hormuz. For example, earlier this week, we dropped multiple 5,000-pound bombs on an underground facility located along Iran's coastline. The Iranian regime used the hardened underground facility to discreetly store anti-ship cruise missiles, mobile missile launchers, and other equipment that presented a dangerous risk to international shipping. We not only took out the facility, but also destroyed intelligence support sites and missile radar relays that were used to monitor ship movements. Iran's ability to threaten freedom of navigation in and around the Strait of Hormuz is degraded as a result, and we will not stop pursuing these targets.
It's degraded, but not sufficiently to, I guess, have confidence that to declare the strait open. Thus, this part of this ostensible negotiation that began yesterday and led President Trump to put the Iranians on a 5-day clock to try to come to some arrangement to achieve cessation of hostilities. This is what Trump said about the Strait.
Thank you.
What about the Strait of Hormuz? Who's going to be in control of that?
That'll be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By who?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in control?
Me and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look, and there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. They're really starting off. There's automatically a regime change. But we're dealing with some people that I find to be very reasonable, very solid. The people within know who they are. They're very respected. And maybe one of them will be exactly what we're looking for.
For more on this, pleased to be joined by Stephen Wills, Navalist at the Navy League Center for Maritime Strategy. He was the chief engineer and executive officer of the USS Patriot. Stephen Wills, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Happy to join you guys from Washington, D.C. today. Thanks.
Thank you. So the combination of what Admiral Cooper offered in his update about degrading Iran's ability to disrupt maritime traffic in the Strait, combined with Trump's hope that opening the Strait is going to be part of some sort of agreement that the U.S. comes to with the Iranians. Can you give us any perspective on what you think still needs to be done to put the Iranians in a position where they have to concede to the opening of the Strait?
No, that's a great question, Dan. Thank you so very much. So the Iranians have had 40-plus years to build up various defenses and capabilities along their part of the Strait of Hormuz, and that include a lot of things Admiral Cooper talked about in terms of cruise and ballistic missiles, coastal radar systems that enable them to attack, merchant vessels that are going through the Strait of Hormuz. The other challenge out there that I ought to add in there, too, is mines. The Iranians have been known to possess a stockpile in the thousands of mines, everything from the sort of classic World War II mine with spikes on it that you run into, to more sophisticated bottom mines that lay on the bottom and explode based on a vessel's magnetic signature or acoustic sounds. So these could be a challenge. There have been some reports that the Iranians may have laid some mines. I'm still questioning that myself because I think that would have scared off all traffic from the Strait of Hormuz entirely, and there's still some vessels going through there yet. So however you look at this, it's still kind of a wicked problem, and Central Command no doubt wants to make sure that they've degraded as many of these Iranian capabilities as possible before they start talking about actually escorting ships through there, perhaps using U.S. Navy vessels. We did this once before, back in the late 1980s in the so-called tanker war, so it's not completely an unfamiliar prospect for the U.S. Navy to undertake. So,
yeah, on the mines themselves, because and then it's been reported that we have since destroyed all of their mine-placing ships, or most of them.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, yeah, there's Iranian ships, oil tankers, and Russian-flagged oil tankers that are being allowed through to provide supply in these times, and that's with the assent of the United States too. Besson talked about it this weekend on the Sunday Talkies. But if you're allowing those ships to be through, and there are mines, ostensibly you're providing information on where those mines are so they can navigate around them, and so then, what's really left? How, if you can remove the mines because the locations have been disclosed and they don't have any capacity to lay more mines, then doesn't that remove one of the threats?
I would certainly tend to agree. I'm going to guess that consider this, too. The rest of Iran's military has really underperformed in this conflict, with really the exception of ballistic and cruise missiles and drones. And that includes especially their Navy and all components of their Navy, including their vaunted Russian-made Kilo-class submarines, have not even gotten out of port before being destroyed. So I tend to think you're right there, in that the number of mines that may or may not have been deployed is fairly small. And again, if mines were in the water in any numbers, the shipping companies would not even allow traffic through the Strait of Hormuz at all. And that includes Russian and Chinese and other shipping companies because they don't want to incur that kind of risk. So the mine threat may be very small. It may be known, like, don't sail over this latitude and longitude because we put some mines there. That should be easy enough to get around. And if the strait is open to some traffic, it can be open to everybody's traffic then. It's not blocked.
So go back to what you mentioned in the precedent you referenced in terms of escorting ships through, because there's been some argument among wonks about this idea of, even if you enlist allies in the Gulf and allies in Western and Central Europe, this idea of escorting ships is not really a viable, even medium-term strategy. Is that your view, or is yours different?
No, I would say it is possible to do this. We did this back in the 1980s before. True, the Iranians had a lot less missiles then, but there was also not then a very dedicated strike campaign against Iranian facilities to silence all their missile batteries and destroy drones, etc. So this is significant. You've also got the USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group on the horizon. That ship has got F-35B aircraft that would be very helpful in joining in an escort operation. So whatever this is, it's going to be a joint operation involving air and sea assets, and probably some Air Force assets as well. We don't do things unless it's a joint, and I think you can do this if Central Command is satisfied they've degraded the missile and drone threat significantly. U.S. Navy vessels have gained a lot of experience in shooting down missiles and drones at short notice during the recent Red Sea campaign against the Houthis. The Navy got really good at this. It's still very dangerous. I'm not discounting the danger or threats, but it is doable, certainly. And if you have a carrier strike group nearby, if you have the Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group, those folks can quickly respond to the shore site that fires a missile or fires a drone at ships that are being escorted. So it's not a good time to be the bad guys on shore because they're going to be seen and immediately counter-targeted, I think. So I think this is doable, provided CENTCOM gets a reasonable level of assurance that they've degraded those sites that have missiles and drones on the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz, and they verify there's not a mine threat. You at least have to make sure that you don't have that mine threat.
Well, and it would also seem illogical for the Iranians to attempt, if they had the capacity, to attempt to strike certainly a U.S. flagged ship going through the strait, because I mean we just got through this threat moment here from over the weekend that if you don't stop with the meddling in the strait, then we're going to turn out the lights in Tehran. Yes. So, that threat is ever present if they can't come to a deal this week. So it would seem to me that that's another way to get them to stand whatever they have down with respect to the strait.
The other thing I'll add, too, is that I tend to discount the mine business somewhat, because if you assume the regime has logical actors on it and they are dependent upon the movement of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz to fund their regime, whatever regime comes next, as President Trump said, we don't know, they need to quickly reopen the strait to traffic once there's some kind of agreement. If you've got mines in the water, that's a long, messy process to disarm and to sweep those. That would slow down the process of getting the strait fully reopened, and that would slow down the ability of the Iranians to start making some money off the movement of oil again, too. So I tend to scratch my head and say I don't think the mines are there because that would be too hard for them to deal with that problem and reassure the shipping companies that it's okay to go through.
Just the nature of what this campaign tells us about the evolving nature of conflict and how these campaigns are prosecuted. There was a CEO of a drone company on with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend. Yeah. And he was talking about the drone capability, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, which would have cost millions or hundreds of thousands per system. And now, that because of innovation and technology, the price point is coming down such that he said eventually we're going to have one drone for every soldier in the military. Is that the future of warfighting?
I can't fully speak to it from the ground component, but I think you're headed there very much in the maritime world. And the Navy's been talking about this for a long time in terms of what they call manned and unmanned teaming. So I think in the future you're going to see every warship, submarine, and aircraft go into battle with a series of drone or unmanned platforms around it that enable it. They become extra weapon carriers. They become additional sensors. They become electronic warfare packages that help to deflect enemy missiles out of the way. So I think you're going there in terms that no warship in the future might set sail unless it has a phalanx of unmanned warships around it. So I think we're kind of headed in that direction, but you're still going to see a manned component. And everything the Navy has said so far has said we're still committed to the idea that no one pulls the trigger unless a human says yes, at least offensively. Defensively, we've been here for a while. In one of my jobs, I served on an Aegis cruiser using the Aegis combat system. If you put that thing in auto mode, it will continue to launch missiles, fire guns, and do things to defend the ship until it's empty. And it's very good at that. So we've done the unmanned defense thing for a long time. We're moving into the unmanned offense thing. And I think you're going to continue to see this development of manned and unmanned systems working together to better enable all of our military operations.
Stephen Wills, navalist at the Navy League Center for Maritime Strategy, was chief engineer and executive officer of the USS Patriot. Stephen Wills, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights.
Absolutely, Dan. Happy to join you guys today, and always happy to talk to people in Chicago. Thanks.
Thanks very much. And he joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
You know what really keeps me up at night? It's the criminals feel more and more bold. They have no fear of any consequences because there are none. So I did what anyone with a family should do. I called Goldilocks. They're not just some cookie-cutter security company. Goldilocks has been protecting Chicagoland homes and businesses for 4 decades, 40 years. And they actually listen. Their technician comes out to the house. He takes a look at what you need to make your house a smart home with a security system you can